All right, today we're diving into something that might just change how you think about your own body. We're going to talk about a pretty revolutionary idea, that biology isn't just about chemistry and genes, it's also about electricity. We're going to explore this incredible invention that's based on a part of our biology we've kind of forgotten, a silent, super fast communication network that literally tells our bodies how to grow, how to heal, and how to live.
So let me just start with this question. What if every single one of your cells is in a constant conversation with its neighbors? Now, what if our modern world, with its Wi-Fi, its cell towers, all these invisible signals, has gotten so noisy that they just can't hear each other anymore? This whole explainer is built on that one simple, but really profound idea. What if all that background hum isn't just noise? What if it's actually jamming the most important conversation in the universe? The one your body is trying to have with itself.
Okay, so here's the key concept you need to grasp, the morphogenetic field. Think of it like this. Your DNA is the parts list, right? It's all the bricks and wires and pipes, but it's not the blueprint for the house. That blueprint, the architectural plan, that's the morphogenetic field. It's this amazing bioelectric grid that tells a cell, hey, you're in the gut, act like a gut cell, and not an eyeball. It's the collective intelligence that organizes a simple clump of cells into a complex, functioning human being.
So how do the cells actually read this blueprint? Well, they have physical connections called gap junctions. You can literally think of these as tiny little Ethernet ports that connect one cell to the next, letting them share electrical signals and information in an instant. This creates a massive, unified network, a biological internet. Every single cell is online, talking and working together. Now, this is where things get really interesting. You have to understand the huge difference between natural energy, like from the sun, and the man-made energy from our tech. Sunlight is totally chaotic and unpolarized. Imagine a big crowd of people trying to push a car, but they're all pushing from different directions at random times. The car doesn't really move, right? It just kind of jiggles. Now, man-made EMFs from Wi-Fi and cell phones, they're polarized. They're like a team of soldiers all pushing on the exact same spot in perfect rhythm. Even if it's less total force, that steady, unified push creates a powerful directional force.
And that steady, rhythmic push is where the trouble begins. That coherent force from our technology creates what this research calls bioelectric dissonance. It's basically static on the line. It's a loud, persistent noise that just drowns out the quiet, subtle, internal signals that our cells absolutely depend on to do their jobs right.
So let's break down how this actually happens, step by step. It's like a devastating chain reaction. First, those polarized EMFs hit the cell's tiny voltage sensors, its ion channels. This force basically tricks the channels into swinging open when they're supposed to be closed. That's called ion-forced oscillation. And that leads to step 2. The cell gets flooded with way too much calcium. Then, step 3. This calcium flood triggers massive oxidative stress, which means free radicals are running wild. You've heard of oxidative stress. It's the engine behind chronic inflammation, feeling tired all the time and aging faster. Finally, step 4. The cell, totally overwhelmed, does the only thing it can think of to protect the rest of the body. It shuts down its gap junctions. It goes offline. It isolates itself.
And this right here, this illustrates the ultimate, terrifying consequence. When a cell gets disconnected from that network, it gets a kind of amnesia. It completely forgets that it's supposed to be part of a team, like a liver or a lung. It just reverts back to its ancient primal programming, survive, divide, and migrate, no matter what. It becomes a cancer cell, not just from a random mutation, but because it lost its connection to the master plan. It became isolated.
So if the problem is too much noise, the solution is actually pretty logical, right? Silence. And that is the whole idea behind the bioelectric incubator. It's not about adding some new energy to the body. It's about creating a totally pristine, quiet environment by taking the disruptive noise away so the body can finally hear itself think again.
The core technology here is actually an old invention from the 19th century called a Faraday cage. It's basically a shield made of a conductive material, like copper, that blocks and absorbs all that incoming man-made radio frequency noise. But here's the really brilliant part. It's a selective filter. It blocks the artificial, dynamic junk while letting the natural static fields that all life evolved with, like the Earth's own magnetic field, pass right on through.
This chart just lays it out so clearly. Let's walk through it. In our normal, noisy world, you see the EMF input is polarized and intense. That forces the ion channels open. As a result, the gap junctions slam shut, leading to isolation. The end game? The cell becomes amnesic. It forgets its job. But now look at the other side. Inside that isolated, quiet environment, the jamming signal is gone. The ion channels go back to their normal, healthy function. The stress signals stop, the gap junctions open back up, and the cell becomes cognizant. It remembers who it is and what it's supposed to do. The internet of the body is back online.
So you see, the goal here isn't to zap the body with some kind of magic energy. The word is realignment. It's about letting the body's own incredible systems restore the correct bioelectric blueprint and reboot that communication network. All you're doing is taking away the burden so the body can finally do what it was designed to do all along, heal itself.
Now, I know this might all sound a little futuristic, but the truth is, this principle is about as old as life itself. For 3.5 billion years, cooperation and connection have been the absolute foundation of survival. And that brings us to a really stunning and very recent discovery. So get this, just in 2024, scientists found out that some of the oldest and most abundant organisms on the planet, these ancient cyanobacteria, aren't just floating around on their own. They are actively building physical bridges, these things called nanotubes, to connect with each other. This was a huge aha moment. It's the proof that networking isn't a new idea. It's life's default setting for survival.
And these nanotubes are literally tiny tunnels. The bacteria share everything through them: food, information, even their internal fluids. When they connect, they stop being a bunch of individuals and they become one single coordinated superorganism. And why do they do it? To survive the stress of living in the open ocean, where resources are scarce.
And this reveals what might be a universal law of biology. From the simplest little bacterium to the most complex human being, isolation makes you weak. Connection makes you strong and resilient. You could argue that our modern world, from a bioelectric standpoint, has become a very stressful environment. And our cells, just like those bacteria, need to stay connected to survive it.
So you see, this whole idea isn't just coming out of thin air. It's the culmination of a very long story. It starts with an ancient survival strategy from billions of years ago, was intuitively explored by some brilliant pioneers a century ago, and is now, finally, being explained and validated by modern biophysics.
That ancient drive for connection, it's actually been popping up for the last 100 years in the work of inventors who are way ahead of their time. Let's look at three of them: Wilhelm Reich, Royal Rife, and George Lakhovsky. They were pretty much dismissed back then, but when you look at their work now, through the lens of what we've just talked about, it looks unbelievably prescient.
First, you've got Wilhelm Reich. He built these metal-lined boxes that he said collected a life energy. But what he really built were basically primitive Faraday cages. He saw an effect. People said they felt better inside them, but he couldn't explain the mechanism. We can. His boxes were filtering out the chaotic, random electromagnetic noise from the environment, what we'd now call entropic waste. By removing it, he was literally improving the body's internal signal-to-noise ratio.
Then there's Royal Rife. He famously claimed he could destroy germs with specific frequencies. Well, he was actually demonstrating a destructive version of the exact same principle we talked about, ion-forced oscillation. He figured out that if you find the precise resonant frequency of a microbe's ion channels, you can basically shake it to pieces from the outside. His huge insight was that specific, man-made frequencies have very specific and very powerful biological effects.
And finally, Georges Lakhovsky. He saw cells as tiny little oscillating circuits. He said that health was a state of oscillatory equilibrium. Today, we call that the cell's transmembrane potential, its healthy voltage. He understood way back then that disease, especially cancer, is fundamentally a state where cells lose their charge. They become depolarized.
So the bioelectric incubator really just ties all these historical insights together into one unified theory. It gives you the protected, quiet space of Reich, which allows for the restoration of the cellular equilibrium that Lakhovsky talked about by removing the exact kind of disruptive frequencies that Reich first learned how to weaponize. It's about treating the body's entire bioelectric terrain, not just chasing one symptom. Which really leaves us with one last, kind of mind-blowing question. For almost the entire history of life on this planet, the world was an electrically silent place. Our biology, our very essence, was tuned to that silence. So what happens to our health, our consciousness, our potential, when we finally give our bodies a chance to return to it? What might we remember about how to truly heal?